It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today is Rebecca Tingle, Executive Director of Anne Arundel County CASA, and Tracey Lane, Case Supervisor, Training and Program Coordinator for Anne Arundel County CASA. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Some people that are listening might not know what Anne Arundel CASA is or how it began. Rebecca.
So CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. We train volunteers who are called CASAs. They are court appointed to advocate on behalf of a child who unfortunately has been abused or neglected and in foster care. That volunteer is assigned by the court to represent the best interests of that child while they're in foster care, to ensure that they find a safe, stable, and permanent home. The CASA concept actually started way back in 1977 in Seattle, Washington. It was a judge who was hearing cases of child abuse and neglect and felt he did not have enough information from all the various attorneys present before him. So he came up with this idea. What if I train lay people from the community to advocate on behalf of these children? He had no idea how many folks would answer that call. And so many people responded, and now it's a national program where we have just under 1,000 CASA programs across the United States. And our local program, we opened our doors in 1997, so we have been around for 22 years serving the most vulnerable children in our community.
And thank you for doing that, because they really are the most vulnerable children in our community.
Absolutely. And Tracey, who's with us today, actually started out as a CASA in our first training class back in 1997. So she has firsthand experience being a CASA herself. And obviously now she has become such an invaluable member of our team where she wears multiple hats. She's our case supervisor, training coordinator, and essentially she is now our program coordinator.
Yeah, again, thank you both very much for what you do. These kids, the reason they need these advocates is because they are in the foster care system, and the parents they have weren't being their advocate at home and are certainly not going to be the advocate in the court system when things go wrong. Yes?
Absolutely. And, again, as we were saying, they have been abused. They're removed from their home, and there's so many different attorneys. So the CASA is there to make sure that all of the needs are met. And they're writing a formal written report for the court. And our judges tell us time and time again that they read the CASA court report first before they hear from any of the various attorneys.
Because you all are closest with the kids talking to them. Is it a daily thing that you're talking?
So it's weekly.
Visits are weekly. There could be, with older youth, there could be daily contact by phone or text, but we like our volunteers to be face-to-face with our kids at least weekly.
Tracey, how do you go home and sleep?
Well, that's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, number one, these kids are phenomenal. They are incredibly resilient. I think about what they've been through and sometimes wonder how they're even upright and walking. Mm-hmm. And they're going to school and they're getting good grades and they're making friends. And I don't know how they do it. So I feel like if they can bear what they have had to bear, then I can bear it too. And I also look at just how great they are, just how fun they are. And we have some really great outcomes. And that's what kind of keeps me going, is when you see a kid kind of go through this and come out at the other end and they're happy and they're safe and they're loved.
And your part of a responsibility is just through judicial proceedings, right? Once that is over, or is there still a connection, or?
There's no official connection, but very often our kids stay in contact with their CASAs. I have one of my first cases, the mother is now 34 and we're still in contact. So it's, and she left foster care when she was 12. So we've stayed in contact throughout the years. So it's kind of up to the child, the child's family, and the CASA volunteer what that's going to look like after the case closes.
All right, let's take a short break. We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today are Rebecca Tingle. She's the Executive Director of Anne Arundel County CASA, and Tracey Lane, Case Supervisor and Training and Program Coordinator for Anne Arundel County CASA. They are making sure the kids that are abused in Anne Arundel County and in the foster care system have a court-appointed special advocate to guide them through judicial proceedings. Tracey, explain how this works start to finish. How does somebody become a CASA?
The only qualification is that you be at least 21 years old and have the ability to make the time commitment. This is not lightweight volunteerism. It's not an hour a week. It's not full-time, but it is on average 15 to 20 hours a month. The vast majority of that is spending time with the child. Otherwise, it's making phone calls. It's connecting with foster parents, biological parents, teachers, caseworkers, therapists. So the CASA talks to absolutely everybody involved in the child's life. And then at least twice a year, there's a court hearing, and the volunteer prepares a written report to the court where they update the court on everything that's going on in the child's life, and then the volunteer also makes recommendations for the child's best interests. As Rebecca said, there are a lot of attorneys in these cases. DSS has an attorney. DSS has to worry about
Social services.
Yes. Yeah. Department of Social Services has to worry about caseloads. They have to worry about budgets. They have to worry about caseworker burnout. The child has an attorney. That attorney's job is to represent what the child wants. So most children want to go home. So that's what that attorney is going to represent in court. The parents, they have their own agenda. They want DSS out of their lives. They want their child back, and they want to parent the way they see fit. So all those attorneys have their own agenda. Our agenda is the best interest of the child.
Okay, so the only qualification is 21 years old. I'm assuming there's a background check.
There's a background check, both state and federal. There's a DSS, Department of Social Services background check, and an MVA, motor vehicle background check. We also provide a 35-hour training that is over the course of about 5 weeks. It's one evening a week for 5 weeks. And then the potential volunteer also spends a session in court observing actual hearings. So that's all part of the process. They also have to do an initial interview and an exit interview after training. So it's pretty involved just to get started.
And a lot of this is dependent on face-to-face communications with the children?
Absolutely.
And so some of these children are not speaking yet, I'm guessing.
Right. So obviously, we serve children from birth to age 21. Young people in our state can stay in foster care till they're 21. So obviously, advocating for an infant would be very different than advocating for a 16-year-old.
Right.
So with an infant, you would be spending time probably in the foster home with the child, making observations, talking with the foster parent, just observing development. And you'd also be communicating with different professionals as far as, maybe pediatricians. There's an infants and toddlers program that deals with children who have developmental delays. So it would be a lot of that kind of work. When you're talking about older youth,
They also don't talk at times.
If you feed them, they will talk. So advocating for them is much the same in that, you're going to be talking to lots of people and preparing a report, but there's also a mentoring part in that kind of a relationship. So it's not our primary role, but it's part of what we do with older youth.
We're going to take another short break. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me is Rebecca Tingle, Executive Director of Anne Arundel County CASA, and Tracey Lane, Case Supervisor and Training and Program Coordinator for Anne Arundel County CASA. They're looking after the children that are most often the most overlooked. These kids have been abused. In order to make sure their judicial hearings, they have somebody representing them that is only interested in their best interest. Let me hear about some of the cases. No real names.
Right. As you can imagine, if we're serving children from birth to 21 and child abuse, child sexual abuse and neglect. Every case is different. But I was involved as a CASA volunteer with a young girl. She was 7 when I was assigned to her, and it was a little bit of an unusual situation. She was still in the home with her parents. Her older brother had been found to be sexually abusing his younger siblings. So he was placed in foster care where he was supposed to get treatment. He was returned to the home after about a year. And so I was visiting in the home every week, and I was just absolutely appalled at the living conditions. It was a dirty, rundown row home in Brooklyn Park. The boy who had been abusing his siblings, he was supposed to have an alarm on his door so that his parents would know if he was leaving his bedroom at night.
How old was the boy?
17. All of these children were developmentally disabled, and the boys had all been sexually abused by a so-called family friend previously. So that's how this sort of came about. But Annie was the youngest. She was 7, and so I developed a very close bond with her because my daughter was the same age. And I would go and check on that alarm every week, and it was never on the door. It was never connected.
Now, is social services supposed to be doing this?
Yes.
Caseloads. This goes back
Yes.
to caseloads, right?
Yes. And the caseworker was visiting with the children, but he was meeting with them at family therapy, and he was not in the home. He was not going to the home. So I was the only one going to the home. And it was interesting. I was there every week, and so the mother sort of got very comfortable with me being there, so much so that she stopped watching what she said. So I would hear her screaming at the kids and cursing at the kids and calling them names and threatening to have them placed in foster care. I knew after a period of months, I knew when we were going to court that I had to make the judge see what I was seeing. So I wrote the court report of my life. I tried to sort of paint a picture with words so that she would see exactly what I was seeing and she would be appalled. Mm-hmm. So we had a very lengthy court hearing, and at the end of that hearing, the judge ordered that all of the children, not just Annie, but all of the children be placed in foster care. Annie had a really hard time at first. She was very anxious. She had a lot of separation anxiety. But about a year later, her attorney and I went to her school. There was a meeting, her educational meeting, and we were in the main office, and they brought Annie down, and she ran into the main office. She ran past her attorney, and she wrapped her arms around my legs so much that I almost fell backwards. She almost knocked me down. So after the meeting, the attorney and I were driving back together to Annapolis, and she said, I think Annie knows that you're the reason that she's out of that house. I think
you're the savior.
She said, I think Annie knows you saved her.
And that's the words. Yeah.
Not all superheroes wear capes. So.
Right. So she's all grown up now. She graduated from high school. She went to prom. She was a lifeguard at her pool every summer. She did beautifully, and she ended up with a warm and loving and caring family. And she still is connected with her brothers thanks to that family. That family really made it an important part of her life to stay connected with her siblings. She's just thriving, and I still hear from her today. Yeah, she's all grown.
Yeah, so my allergies are acting up. Well, thank you again for doing what you do. For those that don't have the time to volunteer to do this kind of work, to do this life-changing and life-saving work, you need money too.
We do.
Rebecca?
We are a nonprofit organization, so we do rely on donations that come in from individuals. We have 2 major events. Our annual gala is coming up on November 2nd. It's the theme this year, well, it's always Casablanca, but it's Together We Rise, helping children in foster care. That's Saturday, November 2nd at the Westin Annapolis Hotel.
Nice venue.
So we're looking forward to that event.
And do you need sponsors for that as
We
well?
always need sponsors, folks to attend, donations for the auction. Folks can reach out to us, our website, aacasa.org, or our phone number, 410-267-7877.
Perfect.
And the next training class, if you want to meet Tracey in person and be trained by the best there is, that'll start right after Labor Day in September. You can apply online to become a CASA.
Do you have both a good mix of male, female, different ages?
We have very few males, and we snatch them up because we have lots of young males
Yeah.
in foster care who need really great role models. You know, as you can imagine, child welfare is full of women, not a lot of
Right.
men, and we need people of color. We really welcome people of color because
People feel comfortable talking to those they feel comfortable with, and often
Absolutely.
it's a member of their own tribe, right?
Absolutely. But like I said, you don't need any qualifications. We will provide all the training. You don't have to have a degree in anything, just a willingness to, look out for the best interests of a child and the ability to make the time commitment.
How many advocates, CASAs, currently you have?
We have assigned right now about 70 volunteers to a little over
90
90 children.
So you definitely need more.
We always need more, yes.
How did you get into it?
My background, I have a master's in psychology, mental health therapist by trade back in Rochester, New York. For about a year, I did child protective and investigative work in Rochester. Was familiar with CASA there. When I moved here to Annapolis, I actually first started working at the Department of Social Services. And then the position for the directorship at CASA came up. I applied, and October it'll be 14 years since I've been with the
congratulations.
organization, and I absolutely love and I'm so passionate about the work that we do.
Do you need help with board? Do you have more members for the board? Do you need? Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely. We are always looking for new board members. So that, again, contacting me directly through the website or my email, rebecca@aacasa.org.
Or maybe just volunteers that can help in other ways, social media, writing, whatever. Is there? Yes, all of that.
Yes, all of the above. We
Okay.
call them our friends of CASA, so they can be involved in just about anything, whether it's helping with an event, being on an event committee, social media, like you said, coming into the office and helping. We are.
Okay. If there's a kid out there that happens to be listening to this, or an adult that's aware of a situation that shouldn't be happening, what do you want to say to them?
They need to tell someone, talk to a respected, trusted adult. And, unfortunately, it has to go through the Child Protective Services
Right.
investigation, and that bureaucracy piece has to happen before CASA can be involved.
But talking about it
But
to
talking
somebody and
about it.
making sure the officials, including law enforcement, is aware, right?
Well, and I would say, I think there are a lot of adults who think there might be something going on, but they're not entirely sure, and they don't want to get people in trouble if they're, What I would say to them is make the report. It's not your job to investigate. Just make the report, and then see the Child Protective Service unit will determine whether they're even going to investigate it, but it never hurts to make that report, and it might be critical if you don't. And you're not going to get people in trouble who shouldn't be in trouble.
And it is anonymous as well. They will never disclose who made the report. But there's also a new initiative with social services, the alternative response. So it may not rise to the level of a child protective investigation,
Right.
but there's something going on, and they can send someone out and provide services and help to that family, which is most important. We want to keep children and families together.
DSS is not, they don't like to remove children. They will do everything they can not to remove children. They will provide services first. So, they're not going to swoop in and just snatch children. They just don't do that.
Thank you both for doing what you do again.
Well, thank you. We're grateful for this opportunity and to spread the word about the work that our volunteers do and the vulnerable children that are so in need of our help.
This is Donna Cole. This is the 1430 Connection. We will see you next week.